I never thought a routine day in my own home could spiral into something so surreal. It started with a knock on the door, one that carried the weight of authority, or at least what the person delivering it believed was authority. On the other side stood Mrs. Karen, the infamous face of our HOA, clipboard in hand, her expression a blend of irritation and self-righteousness. She didn't greet me with a simple hello. No, she launched straight into her accusations, rattling off alleged violations as if her words alone could dictate the law. "You know your dog isn't allowed out in the yard without a leash, right? And that noise, your dog barking at night? It's disturbing the neighborhood," she said, eyes sharp, voice dripping with condescension. It was the usual script, one she recited to anyone who dared to live differently than she thought they should. But what she didn't know, what she could never understand in her narrow, by-the-book world, was that my dog wasn't just a pet. He was a service animal, protected under federal law. He wasn't a convenience or a status symbol. He was my lifeline. I calmly explained this, watching her expression shift ever so slightly, a flicker of uncertainty cutting through the arrogance. I told her about his training, about the documentation I carried, and about the conditions he helped me manage every day. Yet, she wasn't listening. She leaned closer, clipboard shaking in her hand, her voice rising. "I don't care about your papers. The rules are the rules. You're breaking them, and this could lead to consequences. You could lose your dog." Hearing that, a wave of disbelief and fury washed over me. She couldn't possibly understand what she was threatening. This wasn't just a violation of HOA guidelines, it was an attack on my autonomy, my dignity, and the very essence of my life. I felt a surge of the same emotion that countless Black Americans have felt across generations. The sting of being treated as lesser, as if our humanity could be dictated by someone else's rigid rules. But I didn't allow fear to dictate my response. I remembered every lesson my parents and community instilled in me: resilience, knowledge, and the power of standing firm in truth. I started documenting everything. Each interaction, every word she spoke, every misstep she took. I knew that in moments like this, facts were my armor. I called my lawyer, someone who had seen this kind of thinly veiled hostility before, and I shared my story. They reassured me that service animals have protections under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that my rights were clear. The threat to remove my dog wasn't just wrong, it was illegal. But the fight wasn't just legal. It was personal. It was about asserting the right to live freely and safely in the space I had carved out for myself, in the community I had chosen to call home. It was about refusing to be intimidated by someone wielding arbitrary power under the guise of rules. I couldn't help but reflect on the many Black families who have faced similar situations, not over service animals, but over land, property, and space itself. The HOA Karen wasn't aware, but her actions were a modern echo of historical attempts to control Black lives through bureaucratic channels. I knew confrontation was inevitable. The next week, she returned, her determination seemingly fueled by my calm resistance. This time, she brought a couple of HOA board members, as if sheer numbers could sway the facts. They walked onto my property, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning for any sign of imperfection. I remained seated, my service dog resting beside me, calm and poised as always. He looked at me with unwavering trust, the kind that only those who rely on a service animal fully understand. I felt a deep connection in that moment, a reminder of why I would never back down. I addressed them firmly but professionally, laying out the documentation, explaining the federal protections, and pointing out the clear boundaries of HOA authority. I could see the frustration creeping into their faces. Their rules were meaningless when confronted with law and lived reality. Yet, the tension lingered. Karen's thin smile masked her embarrassment but not her stubbornness. She tried one more tactic, subtle this time, questioning my credibility, my intentions, my ability to care for my dog. But I didn't flinch. Every accusation she leveled was met with calm, fact-based rebuttals. By the end of the encounter, they retreated. Karen left muttering under her breath, perhaps realizing that some battles weren't hers to win. But the ordeal left me exhausted, not physically but emotionally. It's a different kind of fatigue, the one that comes from standing up for your rights while facing someone who believes their rules are above your humanity. I spent that evening reflecting, not just on the confrontation, but on the resilience required to live with dignity in a world that often tries to strip it away. It also reminded me of the importance of community. I reached out to neighbors who had witnessed similar encounters, sharing my experience, offering guidance, and reinforcing that knowledge and solidarity are powerful shields against intimidation. The Black community has survived countless challenges, often unacknowledged by those wielding societal power. This HOA incident was small in comparison, but it mirrored the broader narrative: asserting one's rights, protecting one's dignity, and refusing to be silenced. The days following the confrontation weren't easy. Karen tried subtle tactics: emails, vague notices, insinuations designed to unsettle me. But I had learned my lesson: awareness and preparation are my best defenses. Every letter she sent, I archived. Every visit she attempted, I documented. My lawyer remained in the loop, ready to intervene if necessary. It was exhausting, but there was also a sense of empowerment that came from reclaiming control. The turning point came when I decided to elevate the conversation publicly, sharing my story with the community. I wrote a letter, professional and composed, detailing the incident, the legal protections of service animals, and the respect every resident deserves. I emphasized that compliance with rules does not justify discrimination, harassment, or intimidation. To my surprise, many neighbors reached out in support. Some had witnessed Karen's behavior firsthand, others shared their own experiences of being unfairly targeted. In that moment, I realized the power of narrative. Speaking the truth openly, with dignity and evidence, shifts the balance. It changes the perception of right and wrong in the eyes of the community. Karen tried to recover her authority, but her credibility had been undermined. Board meetings that once featured her loud complaints were now quieter, her arguments dismissed more quickly. I watched as the truth, calm and factual, overpowered her theatrics. It was a lesson in justice, not the explosive kind seen in movies, but the steady, unyielding justice that comes from knowledge, courage, and persistence. Through it all, my service dog remained my anchor. His presence reminded me that the struggle was not abstract, it was deeply personal. Each time someone underestimated me, they also underestimated the bond we shared. He represented a truth that no rule or bureaucracy could invalidate: that dignity, care, and love are non-negotiable. Watching him navigate the world, confident and unshakable, mirrored the resilience I had to maintain in the face of harassment. Reflecting on the ordeal, I understood that moments like these are about more than just laws or property rights. They are about legacy, the way we assert our humanity in spaces that may try to deny it. For Black people, every act of standing firm carries historical weight. It resonates with generations who faced discrimination, who fought for recognition, who insisted on being seen and respected. My fight with Karen and her HOA was a modern reflection of that continuum. It wasn't monumental on a national scale, but it mattered profoundly in the personal, local, and communal sense. Ultimately, the HOA had to acknowledge the legal reality: my dog could not be taken. Karen's attempts at intimidation were documented, her overreach exposed, and her influence checked. But more importantly, I had asserted my dignity, protected my companion, and reinforced my right to live freely in my home. The resolution wasn't dramatic, but it was satisfying. It was a reminder that courage, preparation, and knowledge are powerful tools, and that standing for what is right, even against seemingly mundane bureaucratic forces, matters deeply. The incident also sparked broader discussions in my community about equity, respect, and understanding. Residents began questioning HOA practices, advocating for clearer communication and fair treatment. My story became part of a collective learning experience, proof that injustice, when confronted thoughtfully and courageously, can lead to awareness and progress. I found purpose in sharing not just my victory, but the lessons learned along the way. In the end, the fight wasn't about proving Karen wrong. It was about asserting that life lived with dignity and respect cannot be threatened by ignorance or authority misused. It was about honoring the bond one share with my service dog and affirming that love, care, and protection are rights, not privileges. And it was about reminding myself and anyone who hears this story that standing firm in truth is an act of pride, resilience, and empowerment.